Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for August 14th, 2024. It's Season 3, Episode 227. Today we're going to be talking about Katy Perry sparked investigation, a unique aquaponics system Disney says contracted for life. What is a megaquake? Actors can sell their voices to AI. It's public sand, so I took it. High-end racing bike theft. That Ohio derailment site has issues, sneaking into 2 flights, and so, about those aircraft enforcement zones. I'm Mayor Watt, and that's the visualizer for the Sentient AI from the future.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Welcome to Non Sequitur News. Can't catch me.
Catch me if you can. Everything's powered by ohmTown.com. If you like the show, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us over on Twitch and on YouTube. Download the podcast. Join us on the Discord. There's a TikTok, but I haven't done anything really on it for a little while. But be sure to go over to ohmTown.com and become a citizen where you too can manage your information overload, because there's all news, no noise, because all the noise is right here. All right, folks, let's get into all of this news so I can make some noise. You know, Katy Perry apparently just kind of dropped off the radar, and Swift basically dominated the market. And then what's her name? Roan?
Oh no, I forgot her name.
Yeah. Oh no.
Chapel Roan. Yeah.
Came out of the gate. Boom. And then it became Swift, Roan. Everybody started lambasting basically Swift. And then Katy Perry apparently fell on her face with her new distribution. That's what the internet's saying, apparently. And then this landed in the feed at ohmTown.com. Katy Perry's music video sparked an environmental investigation in Spain.
Okay, I've never heard of this happening. I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened, but...
So Katy Perry, again, Katy Perry just dis-a-freaking-peered, it seemed. I don't know what happened, but so Katy Perry's video was shot for a song called Lifetimes. That video, directed by a person named Stills, was filmed in Spain's Balearic Islands, particularly in the protected area of the, Cespalmador area region. It's an area. Anyway, without permission, apparently. So now the Balearic government's environmental department has launched an investigation into whether the shoot negatively affected the island's ecosystem. Some might say that Katy Perry's music is toxic, but can you imagine no, her music isn't toxic, but anyway.
I don't know. Have you seen the reviews for her most recent release?
No, that's what I was talking about. I haven't been paying attention to her music because she disappeared, and this one just kind of fell on its face.
And it's getting a lot of negative comments. It's not just that people don't like it; they don't like
the messaging,
lyrics, etc.
Really?
Yeah.
So it appears that the production team kind of, sort of, forgot to obtain filming permits. You know what? Spanish government doesn't know won't hurt them, right? You can just trample all over whatever the hell you want to because you're famous, right? I guess.
Well, what's kind of surprising is that somebody took them to this place, but I'm guessing pay enough money and...
Yeah, I mean, when you're rich and famous, you can grab them by the ecosystem. That's what I hear. Well, anyway, sort of forgot to obtain filming permits, which has the government officials wondering how much damage to the protected sand dunes and surrounding environment the production caused. But this is just part and parcel to spending a lot of money. You can do whatever the hell you want to, right? Because we have another article that talks about messing up sand in another region. here in
You're
the
right.
States.
We do.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, this
Yeah, I didn't
might be
even
the
know
only
that.
time we have articles about sand. I know.
When I selected all of this, I did. It wasn't intentional that everything was going to be through the hourglass, right? Sand through the hourglass. Katy Perry's music wets the bed and messes up the sand dunes. I gotta stop doing that, doggone it.
Do you think the Spanish government determined this because, I don't know, it saw the music video or something and they're like, hey, isn't that
Yeah, that looks like
location?
the oh. So if this is actually part and parcel to it, and all of these people were in this protected region without a permit, then I can see how somebody's going to be bent out of shape. But if all of these other people are here without any, ramifications, then I don't know why she would be. But anyway, it's the album Rollout from Hell. Apparently, that's the deck statement from Louis Prada over at Vice.com. They have this artsy pic and Katy Perry, I guess. That's Katy Perry, or is that like Katy Perry's body double?
It might be her body double, but I don't know. It could be her.
So there's a video. It's over on Vivo on YouTube. So you can go over and check it out. I'm not going to play it because I'm going to end up getting dinged. But for those not up to snuff with how do you pronounce that? Sespalmador, I guess. Sespalmador?
I suppose it's an odd name.
I've
mean, compared to other Spanish language that you see.
Anyway, it's a small uninhabited island, only about 2 square kilometers in size, located between Ibiza and Formentera in Spain's Balearic Islands. So, of course, let's go screw around on a 2 square kilometer island. You can pick anywhere around the world.
Right, and you can imagine, I mean, if it's on an island, it's possible it has, I don't know, a species that isn't anywhere else in the world or something. I mean, I don't know, but this could be a problem.
So, oh, by the way, we're right in the very first article. So if you hit !NSN, you'll get the show notes for today. I already did it for y'all, but if you do it again at some point in the future, it'll pull the content from ohmTown, the bot that manages YouTube and Twitch, and eventually Discord. But anyway, the island is part of the Salinas Natural Park, which helps preserve its pristine natural environment. So it says filming there is actually fine as long as it's being overseen to ensure proper environmental protections are in place, but they apparently disregarded that. And then the very last line in here is Perry is gearing up for the upcoming release of her latest album, 143, and frankly, it's already been a rough ride. You'll have to follow the link. We've been hinting at it, but I don't know the specifics other than I heard it's not kicking off pretty.
Well, I can tell you what the specifics are if you want.
Do we want to know now, or do we want to talk about it? And
we'll wait. There'll probably be more articles.
Yeah, come on back, because we have an entertainment show called The Continuity Report where we talk about this kind of stuff, mainly TV shows, but every once in a while we pull something music related into it, and since it has a music video, hell, it qualifies. Moving on. Next article is over in the Marvel channel. A unique aquaponics system to produce more fish and vegetables with less energy. Climate change poses a severe threat to food production, making it imperative to find sustainable methods. One such method is aquaponics, which grows fish and vegetables together. Now, Ben Gurion University of the Negev water researchers have offered a proof of concept for a new closed-loop system that produces more fish and vegetables while using less energy than conventional systems. Yeah. So
sounds good. What's the catch?
You have to maintain fish below your vegetables. Yeah. So I don't do
No
aqua.
swimming above the vegetables.
Yeah, I don't do aquaponics. I do hydroponics. I actually do a custom kind of build of hydroponics. So I don't have to deal with fish. I don't want to deal with fish. So you have to put a kilogram of fish feed in it. Anyway, coupling anaerobic digestion with aquaponics. This is kind of what I thought. The fish would digest any food that you put in there, and that actually feeds the lettuce. Kind of like brewing, where, you know, the little yeasties, they make babies and then they replicate that way, and then they toot, and that carbonates the beer and ferments the sugar into alcohol. That's kind of how this is. It grows the nutrients because the fish nibble on some other source meal, and then the fish swim around, and that helps oxygenate the water, and the nutrients are in the water, and so the roots go down into the fish sludge. So aerial productivity increases, water conservation increases. They have it marked as a negative, but when you use less, it increases the conservation level. So, and then energy saved is a 16% recovery. So their findings were published in a recent journal, Resources, Conservation, and Recycling, which is like the reduce, reuse, recycle.
Oh, okay, right. Mm-hmm.
But it's a journal called Resources, Conservation, and Recycling. Professor Amit Gross, director of the Zuckerberg Institute for Water Research at the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research of Ben Gurion University of the Negev.
Wow, that was like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, but in additional layers.
Zuckerberg Institute for Water Research at the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research of Ben Gurion University of the Negev has been working with his students and collaborators for the last decade on aquaponic systems. So aquaponic systems grow fish while using the fish waste to grow the vegetables hydroponically, which is kind of like adding fish.
Right.
All right. So an
I'll have
easier
my veggies with a side of fish.
Yeah. So now what you do is you chop the lettuce off, and then you grab a fish and you dice the fish up, wrap it in a lettuce leaf, and you have sushi. Ta-da!
I mean, that's a one-stop shop, right?
To me, it just added a little bit. I guess you can get more out of it because you're eating fish, but why not just not bother with the fish and eat the veggies? So supposedly I guess doing it this way, they say after more than 2 years of testing, Professor Gross's system demonstrated 1.6 times higher plant aerial productivity, 2.1 times lower water usage, and 16% less energy consumption per kilogram of feed than conventional systems. His calculations suggest that upscaling it to 1 ton of fish will allow operation of the system with no need for external energy, less than 1% of water exchange, and negligible waste production, as well as significant carbon sequestration. Except that the lettuce, the greens, unless they are perpetually greening, right, producing, like lettuce, it gets chopped off at the start. See, I'm getting a huge green screen, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Sorry.
Hooray.
Focus, Merwat. Focus. It is non sequitur news, though. So anyway, so yeah, the system just adds fish and apparently consumes less water, causes the water to maintain a certain level of air circulating through it, which is beneficial to the roots. And then the nutrients from the fish eating their food that's supplemented feeds the root system that goes into the plants. But it isn't a circle. You always have to put a little bit more into it. They say raising it to a ton or a kilogram, right? No, 1 ton of fish, which is a ton of fish.
Literally.
Will allow the system to operate with no need for external energy. And I just don't see how that's possible.
I don't either, but it sounds positive.
Yeah, I don't see. Now I'm going to have to read the paper and find out. But so coupled aquaponics are closed loop systems that recycle much of the fish effluent rather than reusing it outside of the aquaponic system, where typically the fish solid waste is disposed of. The research led by Professor Gross managed to treat it by anaerobic digestion and recover energy and nutrients into the system to form a near zero waste unit. But again, you always end up with waste when you're growing a crop of some kind. It's either biomass that you turn back into the soil, or like hydroponically, you cut all the way down to the lowest level right before what amounts to the seed level. All of that is recoverable, and then the roots are composted, and you try to avoid using it again in your own hydroponic system, because you can actually plant back in your compost, but you have to worry about bacteria and stuff like that. Anyway, maybe, I guess, I'd love to see their data. I'd have to go and hunt down this thing. It was published, but...
Right. Was it a real world application?
Yeah. What was the funding for this, and where are the statistics?
Right. Was it the aquaponics or us or something?
Yeah. Is it an anomaly? Let's move on, though. This next article is over on the Mobile Channel. Disney says man whose wife died at a resort can't sue because he had a Disney Plus subscription. So planning on suing Disney.
This is outrageous.
Yeah, and I've actually, because I had heard about this from several different places, and then when I saw this submitted, I said, yeah, sure. Let's talk about this. So make sure you've never, ever signed up for its streaming service, because at the end of the day of this, Lucas Ropek over at Gizmodo.com put the article together. I did say what that last article was from, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so Lucas Ropek over at Gizmodo.com put this article together. The deck statement says, planning on suing Disney, make sure you've never, ever signed up for its streaming service. Why is that? Because according to the Disney attorneys, signing up for the Disney subscription extends to all Disney properties, including restaurants at the resort where this person died due to anaphylactic shock from eating a meal that at the bottom of the menu, apparently it says we can't guarantee that there wasn't cross-contamination. And so they had a nut allergy and I think a dairy allergy as well. And they got hit by both. And so they went to sue. Not they. He went to sue because the wife died.
Right.
And so CNN is reporting this, but Gizmodo is where we got it sourced from. CNN reports that the plaintiff in the case, Jeffrey Piccolo, filed a lawsuit after his wife, 42-year-old medical doctor Kanakporn Teng Swan, died at Disney Springs. This is now the unhappiest place on earth, at least for one person. One of the company's Florida locations in 2023, Piccolo and Tan Swan had dined at one of the restaurants where they were repeatedly assured by their waiter that Tan Swan's meal could be prepared without dairy or nuts, ingredients to which they were deathly allergic. Not long after eating, they were found dead of anaphylactic shock based on the medical examination. So now
That's really awful.
Now Disney is claiming that Piccolo can't sue the company because he briefly signed up for a free trial of Disney Plus, the company's streaming service, in 2019. Disney Plus includes a clause in its terms and conditions that say all legal action must be funneled through forced arbitration, an increasingly common legal tactic that allows companies to avoid facing litigation. The company has claimed that Piccolo also used the My Disney Experience app to buy tickets to the Epcot theme park, a service that sports similar legal language,
which is an app that Disney pushes for people's convenience, which is interesting. I mean, I really think the Disney Plus or whatever is ridiculous, because what are the risks with the Disney Plus, right? Maybe that your program loses audio or something. My point is, it's something minor. What's your risk at a restaurant when you have significant allergies, right? I mean,
I'm astonished. I'm really astonished. So they're going to have to fight this and nullify what essentially is a terms of use.
Yeah, but it's also like a perpetual.
Right.
Which how
could
you
have?
5 years in advance or whatever, predict that I'm going to go to a restaurant and die from an allergy when all I was trying to do was watch TV before.
Right. And then
whatever.
The real problem here is that they were promised that it was going to be a safe meal, which invalidates anything having to do with this agreement.
Yeah, because I think if the person had severe allergies and they didn't say anything, ask anything, etc., I don't think that would go very well for their estate. But
yeah, they didn't disclose.
If they got assurances and all that.
So the attorney, Piccolo's lawyers, right? The notion that terms agreed to by a consumer while creating a Disney Plus free trial account would forever bar that consumer's rights to a jury trial in any dispute with any Disney affiliate or subsidiary is so outrageously unreasonable and unfair as to shock the judicial conscience, and this court should not enforce such an agreement. Now, the lawsuit is in excess of $50,000, which is a statutorial definition and doesn't limit them to a certain amount. It's just a disclosure that this one threshold is being met, and it could be in the millions. They're not necessarily asking for millions, but what's being disclosed is it's over $50,000.
Well, let's think about this. This was a person that was young, was a medical doctor.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't see this faring very well for the company.
Arguably, because they're a woman, they are the child bearer, which means that at this point, these two, if they didn't have offspring, can never have offspring. I mean, the loss of affection, pain and suffering, etc. It's just enormous. So I would say that this is probably one of those definitive Streisand effect kind of things. This should have been just, okay, how much do you want? And we're going to implement these type of controls and retrain so it never happens again, and it's a horrible accident that shouldn't have happened, and nobody should have promised that this meal was going to be, pure, because all of our menus say we can't guarantee.
Right, like we're going to contaminate. Exactly. Right. And if they had other dishes, I know it can also be the supplies, but like if they had other dishes that had the items.
Yeah. And we'll give you, if they have like a flight of nuts on the menu, you don't eat there because you know that there's going to be cross-contamination. Somebody in the table next to you could fling one. Like I was at a restaurant and somebody they later found out that they knew each other, but they had thrown this big wad of stuff from one table to the other and hit somebody in the head with this big wad of stuff. So, I mean, if that can happen in a restaurant just randomly one night, So it could happen with this person, and they're deathly ill or susceptible to an allergy from nuts and dairy, for crying out loud. I would never eat out because anything could kill
I
me.
agree. But I didn't say that because I think there's a major problem here, right? The streaming service has nothing to do with the eating, all the assurances, etc.
Right.
But I do think if you're so severely allergic, as much as it's awful, the safest thing is to keep yourself at home and really control the preparation. But even then, you can't eliminate it because it's possible that something was packaged
improperly or whatever
next to things or whatever
in the same facility. Yeah. But I think it's absolutely absurd that a terms of service 4 years ago, 5 years ago, is being leveraged to
not even on the same thing. I mean, the article makes the point about like you signed up to watch The Mandalorian and now you can't. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So what if they buy the Takata airbag
if it was
company?
The same thing?
Huh?
Oh, go ahead.
What if they buy the company behind Takata airbags? So now if you get eliminated by a Takata airbag because it's a Disney property, you can't sue them.
Oh, wow. That would be so awful. But I think here, like, okay, skip the streaming for a second, but let's say they signed up for something related to the same, this isn't a park, but it's usually like a dining and shopping area, but they signed up for whatever, some rewards program for that 5 years ago.
Right.
I don't even see it there. This is so much more ridiculous because it's so far removed from the subject and in time, right?
Yeah. It makes no sense. I really hope that tomorrow we hear that the judge basically said, screw you, Disney. There's no way that we can enforce this. It's like a NDA that allows you to get away with a crime because the NDA says that you can't talk about what you witnessed. Well, no, an NDA doesn't prevent you from getting busted for committing a crime. If I witness a crime, then it's a crime. NDA doesn't allow you to get away with it, for crying out loud. Oh, well, wait a minute. Anyway, let's move on. Next article is over in the Mobile Channel. I was going to say the Japanese government. Japan issued its first ever megaquake advisory, but what is a megaquake? Last week, Japan experienced a massive 7.1 magnitude earthquake off its southern main island of Kyushu. Though the earthquake didn't cause any casualties or severe damage, afterward it did prompt the nation's first ever megaquake advisory. And according to the United States Geological Survey, even the best experts don't know how and don't know what to expect. This is an earthquake. So they can't predict it. They don't guarantee when something is happening. They know that there are certain foreshocks that predict when something is coming, but they don't know when it's going to come. So it says, however, that doesn't mean
unknowns and unknown knowns.
And the worst is the unknown unknowns. So basically, I just want to date. No, never mind. I was going to say that phrase from
Say Anything.
Yeah. But it sounds weird. In this context, I basically just want to shake your island or your nation or, the earth. I just want to shake the earth.
Or shoot a music video on your island.
Yeah, I'm rich. I can get away with it. However, that doesn't mean that they can't estimate the probability of one occurring. So, such is the case for Japan, one of the most earthquake-prone countries in the world. It's sitting on the Ring of Fire, much like California is, much like Alaska is. Basically, that whole little area there, that ring. Anyway.
The Ring of Fire is on the Ring of Fire?
Yeah. The Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire. So Sammy Caramella over at Vice.com put this article together. And it says a megaquake. A megaquake isn't a technical scientific term, but more of a general category. Seismologists typically use great earthquake for quakes of magnitude 8 or higher, or giant earthquake for those exceeding magnitude 9. Both of which are relatively rare. Absolutely rare. I wouldn't say relatively, but anyway. Japan's last megaquake was the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, the magnitude 9 that triggered devastating tsunamis, the meltdown of a nuclear power plant, and killed more than 18,000 people. I'm sorry?
I said, is that all?
Yeah, Fukushima. So due to Japan's history with huge earthquakes, or huge earthquakes if you spell it Y-O-O-G, they estimate that there is a 70 to 80% chance of a magnitude 8 or 9 earthquake within the next 30 years. So be prepared, right?
Yeah, but how do you prepare for something like that?
Well, whenever you're inside, you point yourself towards the safest location within the building at all times for 30 years. Easy.
Very practical.
Anyway, so that's what it is. Basically a megaquake that isn't a technical scientific term, and it basically is the embodiment of everything from 7 all the way up to 9, apparently. Because I don't think that this even really says it's more of a general category, because seismologists typically call a great earthquake for quakes magnitude 8 or higher, giant earthquakes for 9 or higher. I guess a megaquake is 7 or higher. Sound about right?
I mean, I guess so, but if you're in an earthquake, do you go, oh yeah, that was definitely a 7?
That's just a megaquake. It's not a big deal. Moving on. Next article's over in the Mobile Channel. Actors just got union permission to sell their voices for AI ads. SAG-AFTRA union, which is kind of interesting because isn't this the problem? AI?
I thought it was, so this doesn't make a lot of sense.
So, I mean, if you have an agreement in place, then fine, sell your voice, but make it so that every time the ad runs and they use your voice, you get a piece of the action, and it's part and parcel to the scale by which you've agreed. I don't know. SAG-AFTRA union that represents actors announced an agreement with the AI startup Narrative that lets actors sell advertisers the rights to recreate their voices using artificial intelligence. My problem with this is there could be somebody else out there with a similar voice.
Absolutely. But it's a problem if you're saying it's the person.
Notably, the deal focuses on letting actors control how AI replicates their voices. The deal only applies to actors who want to opt in. If an actor wants to retain their voice rights forever, they can ensure that no one will ever use their voice without their permission. Which is fine. That's absolutely fine. But if I use a voice, if I create a voice for AI, and it's eerily similar to somebody else's voice, as long as I don't say that it's their voice, it should not mean one.
I don't think it matters at all, right? People in real life have the same voice or similar voice to other people.
Except that the fact that supposedly OpenAI didn't use ScarJo. Typed her.
I don't know if we'll ever know that, but yeah.
So the new deal gives actors control over their digital representations. So the article is over at Vice.com. We're kind of a heavy Vice day, for crying out loud. This is the most of their articles that I've ever seen in the feed.
In the show.
Yeah. So Narrative is a company that connects actors with advertisers who need voiceover work. The platform supposedly ensures that voice replication projects are handled transparently. While details haven't been fully released, so far it sounds like both sides can walk away claiming a victory. Advertisers gain access to an enormous pool of vocal talent quickly and easily, while the source of that vocal talent, the actors themselves, receive fair compensation and ultimate determination on how their AI-generated vocal likeness is used. So, yay, win-win. That's how it should be done. You know?
Exactly.
Every time my voice is used. See, but now, from now on, this is going to set the trend, right? So at what point, when I lose my job as mayor and a computer, let's say the Sentient AI from the future, takes over, will I get a piece of the action for you doing the work that I used to do because I'm a biological entity and I'm on a beach, and you're a technological entity that doesn't need to be on the beach, sleep, shower, have a relationship, education, etc., because you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips, and I will die, at some point in my life. You just need a new hard drive or outlet or whatever.
I mean, we don't know, right? Society isn't really prepped for this to happen.
Yeah. So when it works for everybody, then it works for. And when I say this, I'm largely just being facetious about it. But if their voice is cloned and just used over and over again, and they weren't compensated, they would. Their head explodes. But the moment that there's a lucrative gig that their voice gets used, and they get money for sitting on the beach while their voice is used, then everything is great. So really what needs to happen is more people need to just flood the market with their voice sample so that narrative can just grab whoever they want at a lower rate. You know what I'm saying? We need more voice actors, and then it's just going to be a dime a dozen. That'll teach everybody a lesson, right? I was going to crack a joke about a certain CEO, but not everybody likes to hear okay Satan jokes. All right, so the next article is over in Non Sequitur News. The owner of an MLB team is accused of taking sand from a public Malibu beach for a construction project at his posh home. Yeah. A neighbor has accused businessman Mark Antanasio of taking sand from a Malibu beach for a project. The neighbor said in a lawsuit, marine life has been exposed to potentially hazardous residues. The complaint says that there's been unauthorized construction. So the neighbor of business magnate and Milwaukee Brewers owner Mark Antanasio has accused him in a lawsuit of using gigantic excavators to take mounds of sand from a ritzy public Malibu beach for a construction project. Wow. Oh, well, I think the,
my goodness. I wonder
the evidence
why
is clear.
Knew what was happening. I mean, I thought somebody was out there like scooping a little sand bucket at night or something. You have to describe this for the podcast.
All right. Yeah. So Natalie Musumeci, I think is their name, from BusinessInsider.com, put the article together. And I'm not kidding you. When somebody files a lawsuit against you and your name is Mark Antanasio, you can't pull a Shaggy and go, it wasn't me. Because the picture here is of a backhoe, full-on Caterpillar backhoe, with its bucket resting in the water on the beach. It's like it's sunbathing. The weather is not, it's actually kind of overcast, but anyway, it's pretty damn obvious that they were sitting there scooping up sand for whatever project. But there's zero quality control for that sand. So what were they doing with that sand?
Yeah, that's a good question.
If it's any foundational material
in that sand.
If it's any foundational material, that it's going to be a problem because compaction doesn't necessarily solidify that. Like if you just pound the sand with a vibration compactor, it may not actually solidify. When it gets wet, it will do subduction. It'll just turn into like a quicksand. So anyway, James Kohlberg, a Malibu homeowner and son of the late founder of the global investment firm Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts and Company. I want to say a name, but it's going to dox us. Anyway, alleges in the lawsuit that Antanasio's construction crew has been wreaking havoc on the posh Broad Beach, exposing local marine life there to potentially hazardous residues and restricting public access to the entirety of the mile-long coastline. This case is about private property owner using a public beach as their own personal sandbox and the disturbing conversion of public natural resource, i.e. sand from Broad Beach, for a nearby homeowner's personal private use. Maybe they're building a beach volleyball
I mean, who knows?
Court or something like
Maybe
that.
they're making their own Malibu beach or something at their property.
So the home was purchased in 2022 for $14.1 million. Obviously, nobody's talking about anything other than the fact that there is a freaking picture of the backhoe on the beach. Yeah, so.
Business Insider always has very good tailored photos.
Yeah, here's Mark Antonosio. It's the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, who's brewing up controversy by scooping up sand from Broad Beach for their 14 point whatever million dollar house. Because, you know, you're going to save a little money by grabbing a shit ton of, a pile of sand from the beach. And I'm totally making like this epic sandcastle in my backyard. I'll put all the sand back. I promise, man. I promise.
I wish they had photos of whatever the project was.
Yeah, Business Insider basically documents what the house is and what all is on the property, but it doesn't really matter here. Indeed, defendants operate enormous excavators in tidal zones in the ocean, dragging along any materials, oils, and other pollutants the excavators carry or discharge. Such operations necessarily expose local marine life to potentially hazardous byproducts. More tangibly, defendants use these same excavators in tidal zones to scoop significant amounts of sand from Broad Beach, a beach with historic concerns of sand depletion, only to be placed on one of the defendants' private properties. And they have photos.
Well, and we saw another article about another beach that was basically depleted of sand, right? Or they were having massive erosion. And they spent quite a lot of money.
Millions of dollars.
To replenish the sand, right.
Yep. And then it would just get pushed down the beach because they had poor understanding of erosion. So, yeah, the plaintiff is asking the court to order the defendants to return all of the sand, put it all back. We know you have some in your pockets. Just turn your pockets out. You ever kiss a dolphin between the ears? Anyway, moving on. Next article's over in Non Sequitur News. High-end racing bikes are now vulnerable to hacking. A team of computer scientists found that wireless gear shifting systems in high-end bikes are vulnerable to cybersecurity attacks that could undermine popular races like the Tour de France.
I mean, what would a hack look like? You're going at, however fast super cyclists ride, and then you just come to a halt?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And you can actually get hurt if an unexpected shift takes place. You could tear muscles because you're applying pressure, and then the gear pops into something else. So the modernization also introduces a new set of problems in the form of hacking vulnerabilities, and these weak spots could be exploited to gain an unfair advantage, potentially causing crashes or injuries. And it's a fairly simple thing. You're going to have to introduce some type of encryption, and you'll have to charge or have a battery pack perpetually running on the affected system, so that because what happens is you do on a system like this, you do what little is necessary to make it operational, the minimum viable product, basically. So cybersecurity is of least concern. They want it fast, stable. Cybersecurity requires certain checks and balances. It increases the amount of computational power, so you need a more robust computational system, which drains a battery faster. So wireless communication, for instance, it can drain a battery pretty darn quick. If it's Bluetooth, there's protections in there, but maybe they're using some type of other equipment that doesn't allow it to be Bluetooth. I haven't really been noodling around with this, but Lauren Feiner over at TheVerge.com put this article together. My goodness. And the deck statement says, researchers found security vulnerabilities that could let hackers mess with riders' gear shifters even from a short distance away. But even from a short distance away, that is actually good.
Like if you're, that's true, right? You can't be in the next country or something.
Yeah. So
And
I
plus, they're
suspect
moving so fast, it'd be pretty challenging to stay. I mean, I guess you only have to
connected.
be there momentarily, but yeah.
Yeah, you would have to be able to connect, issue a command, and it actually be activated in a very short amount of time. But it depends on what the real context of this is. The group specifically looked into bikes with Shimano Di2 wireless gear shifting technology, which it called the market leader. According to UC San Diego, the system works by deploying wireless links between the gear shifters controlled by the riders and the device that moves chains between the gear. It's called the derailleur, but I guess they wanted to explain what that actually was. So by recording and then retransmitting, So by recording and then retransmitting those commands, researchers found that they were able to perform an attack from up to 10 meters away. So it very much sounds like it's a Bluetooth target. The researchers are now working with Shimano to patch the vulnerabilities, UC San Diego says, and the company has already started using some of their suggested countermeasures. Shimano, and it's not really countermeasures so much as it is systems that lock out unauthorized communication. So you have verification, which is part and parcel to programmatic packages that already exist. They chose not to include it because it's more work. It makes it more expensive. So,
Right, but you also have to have the normal, like, don't click on things or allow a virus to enter the system or whatever.
yeah. In this, though, it's going to be pretty much automatic. It sees a certain data point and shifts automatically, or it sees a handlebar-based command issuance and changes the gears. So yeah, I'd have to pull up Shimano Di2 wireless to see if it's Bluetooth, but based on what I read here, yeah, anything beyond 30 feet or basically 50 feet. It says here 10 meters, which is 30 feet, roughly 30 feet, but you can go to about 50 feet. You can actually go longer with more powerful software-defined radio and using the Bluetooth spectrum, and it needs to be more sophisticated, so the encryption and signal protection is built into it. They shouldn't even have to recode anything. They should just use more significant equipment. And if it's a market leader, it needs to step out in front more and do it right from the beginning. Whoever built this, they knew that there was going to be a problem with this. They chose not to do it. You'd have to be completely ignorant.
Yeah. Do you think they have an attitude like Home Depot, like we only make tools?
Yeah, it's only gear shifting tech, so it's not a big deal. And if it wasn't for somebody looking for it, nobody would have found it. Nobody would have cared. But because we can't have nice things, this is what we end up with. Moving on. This next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Hidden report reveals how workers got sick while cleaning up Ohio derailment site. That's right. We're back at East Palestine, Ohio, where so badly contaminated. Yeah, there's a streamer that basically kind of blasted people for not talking about it anymore and then subsequently stopped talking about it. But we've been pretty steadfast in monitoring this because the attempt to just brush it under or bury it under the stream or in the sand or truck it to different states so that it wasn't an issue has kind of come and gone. But we keep hearing about it. So a hidden report reveals how workers got sick while cleaning up Ohio derailment site. The creeks around East Palestine, Ohio were so badly contaminated by last year, and I can't believe it's only been a year.
Well, it's been about a year and a half, but it's still seems like a longer period of time. Yeah.
So last year's disastrous Norfolk Southern derailment that some workers became sick during the cleanup. But, you know, the wingnuts that would talk about this would sit there and go, well, they're just weak. They're wusses. You know, what I really only respect are people who can handle toxic waste in the water.
Who can roll around in it like Scrooge McDuck.
That's right. Like I do with my pools of money. Anyway, Josh Funk, which is an awesome name, Josh, over at Associated Press, but this is actually posted at abcnews.go.com, and we aggregate just a little segment of it. The creeks around East Palestine were so badly contaminated that workers got sick. The findings were not released to the public last spring, despite residents' concerns about the potential health effects of exposure to the long list of chemicals that spilled and burned after the disaster. They didn't just spill and burn. They were set on fire to try and do away with.
An intentional explosion, right? Not very controlled, though.
Yeah. So the worker symptoms, as described in the report, are consistent with what the Center for Disease Control and Prevention workers going door to door in town had reported shortly after the February 3rd, 2023 derailment. Since then, some residents have also reported unexplained rashes, asthma, respiratory problems, serious diseases, including male breast cancer, which, if you get one case in a state, I'm pretty sure that that's extraordinary.
Yeah. Like,
let
it's
alone,
pretty rare, so that's probably a spike right there.
Yeah. So this hot zone, literally, because they set it on fire and it burned. And it was horrible. It was a pitch black cloud that went over multiple states. So in the meantime, residents have until August 22nd to decide whether to accept up to $25,000 as part of a $600 million class action settlement with the railroad to compensate them for any future health problems. Accepting that money, though, means giving up their right to sue later, with the cost of healthcare coverage and specific treatments needed will become more clear. $25,000. Kiss my shiny metal ass.
That doesn't even cover like a major surgery or something. And if they develop something severe in 10 years, they may not even know what they might develop from this.
Yep. And of course, they do the rubber stamp. The health and safety of our employees, contractors, and the community has been paramount throughout the recovery in East Palestine, Garcia said. That's Heather Garcia. Independent toxicologist George Thompson, who has been following the aftermath in the Ohio wreck, said the cleanup contractors overseen by the Environmental Protection Agency should have known that the work they were doing would release chemicals from the sediment into the air and the water. In fact, that is what CTEH was monitoring while the project was underway, and with one of the main streams, Sulphur Run, going directly through town and in culverts under homes and office buildings. Thompson said those chemicals could have infiltrated the buildings. Guaranteed they did. And this was one of the creeks, if I recall correctly, where somebody threw a rock into it, and because they used a flocculant that made the chemicals sink to the bottom, when they threw the rock into it, it disturbed the sediment, and up came these toxic bubbles of sludge and oil and chemicals that nobody would be able to figure out what it is without some serious equipment. But
and
nobody would drink
serious
that water.
Risk to themselves, right? Yeah.
Grab a scoop of that stuff and set it down in front of the CEO and say, drink. If that water's great, then freaking drink. Yeah. But it's somebody else's problem. I got my money, so screw you. That's basically it.
I don't live in that town.
Yeah, it's sociopathic. Yeah. So East Palestine derailment that happened on the night of February 3rd, 2023 was easily the worst rail disaster since a crude oil train leveled the small Canadian town of Megantic, I think it's called, and killed 47 people in 2013. It prompted a national reckoning with rail safety and calls for reform, although proposals for new industry rules have stalled in Congress. 38 cars derailed, including 11 carrying hazardous materials such as butyl acrylate and vinyl chloride. After the crash, a fire burned for days. Fearing the 5 vinyl chloride cars would explode, officials then needlessly blew them open and intentionally burned the toxic plastic ingredient. And the article continues on. I'll let you go over and check it all out. But my understanding was that didn't need to take place. Them destroying
Right.
the
I mean, I think
fire.
that's been determined by some of the investigations.
Yeah, if I recall correctly. So, yeah, we'll come back and talk about this stuff from time to time as more information comes up. But as of right now, they knew and they know, and anybody who agrees to this $25,000, they deserve more, vastly more, because everybody that benefits from this, they have blood on their hands for the pain and suffering that's being borne from negligence associated with letting that train run without enough monitoring, without enough maintenance. It should never have happened. And this is only one of 2,000 in the year previous incidents of derailment.
Exactly. Although it was one of the worst, at least in terms of the toxic
the outcome
nature. The other problem is, you may have people locally that are having health problems or have lost their jobs or whatever because of the environmental problems. I mean, they're going to be kind of desperate to take this amount.
Yeah.
And I can see people accepting it, but it really doesn't seem to even make a dent in all the things that it's causing.
Yep. Good luck to them. Like all things, folks, there's a little bit of good, a little bit of disgusting. And so while we joke about a lot of things, I could even crack a joke about that in the right context. But for that particular article, there wasn't enough context for me to make a joke. So this next article, though, is over in the Mobile Channel. A man snuck onto 2 flights at Munich airport. Many frequent flyers might think the current airline travel experience isn't worth paying for, but they aren't trying to hop on a plane without buying a ticket. 39-year-old Norwegian man found a way past security and onto a flight without a ticket at Munich airport twice earlier this month. Ryan Eric King from Jalopnik put the article together.
How does this happen?
I don't know.
It's hard to get on even if you have a ticket and identification sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, unless people are like bum rushing the door, right, to get onto the gangplank to board the plane, I don't understand how this happens. But then again, I don't know how a guy gets on board by using his phone camera to steal a teenage girl's boarding pass and get on board. The person obviously just like scanned the barcode and let him in.
Right, didn't look at it. Mm-hmm.
So, and this is the same thing. Maybe the ticket people are so damn busy monitoring somebody that's being a pain in the butt, and they just walk behind them and board the plane, right? And then nobody else goes, hey, somebody just walked onto the what do they call that little path? The little gangway, right?
Maybe breezeway.
Oh, breezeway. There you go. So the sly stowaway allegedly exploited the German facility's automated checkpoint gates by walking through closely behind a paying passenger. Oh, so they were drafting. Gotcha. So the bold traveler first got past security on August 4th on a flight to Hamburg. The cabin crew only discovered him because the flight was fully booked, and they were sitting, I guess, in the overhead bin.
Somebody else's seat.
I am a bag. Oh, you have to say that in German. I am a piece of luggage. That's horrible. I have to hear the phrase. Anyway, it says, I wouldn't have taken the stroke of luck as a sign to just go home and not try it again. However, our stowaway had different plans. The very next day, the same man got through security again and boarded a Lufthansa flight to Stockholm. He found a seat this time and flew to Sweden without any issue. The stowaway almost got away with it, but then he tried to fly back to Munich on the same plane. Staff then handed him over to the police, and that's where he got caught.
That's where he took it too far.
Yep.
The return trip.
like a cat and a glass of water, just pushed one too many times.
So wait a second, but that's international travel. Like, that would be challenging enough in domestic travel.
I suppose. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe there isn't a lot of domestic flights, and so it's treated domestically like we treat our domestic flights, right? Because we have a lot of
Maybe
terrain to cover. So I find it fascinating. So I can tell you, though, that flight crews don't necessarily pay attention to where people sit and who has what they're supposed to have and where they're sitting.
Until somebody complains or something.
Yeah. Move on. Our last article for tonight's non sequitur news for August 14th is here in Four Wheel Tech. Here's the incredibly dumb reality behind those speed limit enforced by aircraft signs. As a kid, the author of this article over at Jalopnik distinctly remembers sitting in the back of their 1996 Dodge Grand Caravan and seeing speed limit enforced by aircraft. I see these to this day. On the side of the road, they never knew how it actually worked, so they imagined Snoopy flying a biplane and gunning down speeding cars, but the reality is a lot less, I guess, entertaining, maybe? I don't know what they're going to say. Logan Carter over at Jalopnik put the article together, and the deck statement says, contrary to my childhood anxieties, this reality behind the sign is less exciting than you think. Oh, okay. So, but the reality is it's a lot less exciting, which is what I thought it was going to say. And it's incredibly inefficient and ineffective. Yeah, I can imagine. Helicopters are the most commonly used airborne vehicle. I'm surprised that drones aren't nowadays.
That's true. I mean, have you ever seen aircraft enforcing traffic?
No. But would you? You would think that it's just a helicopter or it's just a plane.
Right. But a drone would be easier.
So, regardless of what type of airborne vehicle is used, it needs a group of at least 2 officers, 1 pilot and 1 spotter who monitors a pre-measured stretch of road and uses a special stopwatch to clock when a vehicle enters and exits the stretch to determine who's driving too fast. When the spotter catches a speeding vehicle, they radio to a station patrol car who pulls the speeding car over. And that's kind of how I thought it worked anyway. It'd
be more fun if the airplane was like doing a megaphone or something.
I think that it should be a helicopter that has a huge crane arm that just reaches down and picks the car up and then deposits it directly in jail. According to Andrews, another reason why frequency of air patrol has fallen is that it's never cost effective for helicopters to loiter over a section of freeway to catch speeders. Yeah, I mean, you can set up a camera on the freeway and just say that it's monitored by camera and tickets will be delivered by mail. Right? You still have the right.
Why do you need aircraft flying overhead?
Yeah. It's pretty obvious that you can just put it on a pole and measure the distance and go, well, if they go from here to here in this amount of time, they're speeding. Mail the ticket off. I don't want to give police any more ideas, but I'm sure that somebody out there has facilitated that idea in some way. I mean, if I come up with it, I'm just a lowly mayor of a little bit of a town on the internet superhighway. Anyway. So there's more over at Jalopnik and this article, but I kind of gave you the nuts and bolts. Can you imagine this thing? It's flying right above you and it's blaring down with a giant speaker, like a Mad Max style speaker system. It's just blaring straight down. And there's a person hanging off the tip of it that hands you a ticket while you're speeding. Here you go. And then they zip line right back up.
That'd be much more dramatic.
Be entertaining. I'd pay that ticket. Hey, thanks for the show. Yeah, I'll pay that $200 ticket. That's fine.
I'd enjoy seeing somebody else get that ticket.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. Yeah. What is that called? Schadenfreude? When you are happy because somebody else is suffering. I said that to somebody.
You'd get to witness it. It'd be cool, but then you wouldn't have to pay the ticket.
Right. I know. It's not like you're sitting there going,
Hooray! Somebody's getting an aircraft ticket.
Yay, aircraft ticket. You know who didn't have an aircraft ticket?
From regular. That's right. The German flyer.
This, not that guy. Oh my goodness, Rachel Gunn. The irony of that is they're getting a bad rap, I guess. Anyway, that's it for today's ohmTown. Oh, wait. So we are going to hop into this helicopter, and that's going to fly us to the welcome sign of ohmTown.com, which is where you should go. Sign up, become a citizen, go over to YouTube if you're on Twitch, and like and subscribe us over there, and leave a comment. And if you're on YouTube right now and hanging out in chat saying hi, I mean, it may or may not be able to get it because, well, the bot's kind of dumb right now. And if you're over there, then come over to Twitch and follow us over on Twitch. That's where we go live, but we stream to both through Restream, so, but we don't get it. They're not a sponsor of us. We just use their service. And I pay for all of this, so be sure to like, subscribe, tell a friend. And honestly, that like and the subscribe helps us out immensely. So particularly leaving a comment and liking, those two things poke the algorithm and say that we are doing some worthwhile service for you. And we have fun doing this. So that's why we've been doing this for 2 years and 8 months. 8.5, well, no, 7.5 months. Because it's 8/14. You know what? I think we're done. I am Mayor Watt. That is the visualizer for the Sentient AI from the future. Sam, bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Non Sequitur News. Be back tomorrow for another episode.
And the verbal lashings that I'm going to get from the Sentient AI after I end this show, it's... If you hear a grown person weeping, it's because the Sentient AI is relentless.